Off you go. Questions? Right?
Yeah. The first question will be, as everyone knows, every culture has its own unique approach to etiquette. Could you give some examples of these differences and explain how they can be evidenced in Hungarian culture?
Well, the first thing perhaps I can mention is language, because Hungarians are notoriously not very good language learners, although things are improving nowadays. But still, there are many people who don't speak foreign languages. And if in a business situation you're not certain whether your business partners are going to speak Hungarian, then it is best to have somebody, a local person, who can interpret for you, because that is going to make things very, or more, easier for communication purposes. And the other thing perhaps is politeness, and I think this is not characteristically Hungarian, but it can be true of any culture. If you learn a couple of phrases in the native language, like thank you, köszönöm, good morning, good evening, that is always appreciated by your partners. And the other thing that I can mention perhaps is forms of address. So Hungarian is a high power distance country, which means that there is a great distance between the top and the bottom levels of the hierarchy. And because of this, the formal forms of address are particularly important. The polite titles like Mr., Ms., or the academic titles, these are, if you use these are appreciated by Hungarians, of course, and coupled with the person's family name. And perhaps another thing could be the topic of conversation, and again, this is not particularly Hungarian, but it's something that you should observe in every culture. There are certain topics which are delicate, which can be embarrassing. Like, you don't talk about politics, you don't talk about religion. Safe topics with Hungarians are wine drinking, cuisine, gastronomy, which is getting very popular in Hungarian, and perhaps sport, and particularly football, right? Because that's our national sport.
Yeah. And how do you think that these sets of diverse cultural behaviors come into existence?
Yeah, well, first we have to define culture. What is the definition of culture? Culture is, if we take Hofstede's definition, it's the collective programming of the mind, which distinguishes one group from another. Culture can also be defined as the answers that people give, or societies give, to various challenges in life. And I think perhaps this latter definition characterizes Hungarians better, in as much as Hungarian is always thought of as a survival culture. Now, why is Hungarian a survival culture? Because we have had 150 years of Turkish rule, 200 years of Habsburg rule, 40 years of Soviet rule, and Hungarians had to survive under these very diverse circumstances. So these are values and beliefs that are ingrained in Hungarian culture. And this is the response that was given to these challenges presented by these foreign powers in the country.
Yeah. And when teaching international students, you may have come across some cultural strange behaviors. Have you ever witnessed any faux pas or funny situations?
I don't know about it being funny, but it is definitely strange. Having mentioned that Hungarian is a high power distance culture, there are certain rules or rituals as to, for instance, how you communicate with your tutors in an academic setting. And many of the international students, some of them call you teacher, which is something it's a term that's used for primary school, very small children. So it's not something that you would use in a university academic setting. And the other is the first name term. So if there are international students who want to address you by your first name, again, this is very strange because we are used to the formal or academic titles or even the academic status. So sometimes people can be, or tutors can be called professors. And this jars, but of course you come to terms with it, and then you explain to the students that this is not exactly the procedure that's used in Hungary. So.
Well, to sum up, what would you recommend international students of business and management to be aware of when working with Hungarians in a business environment?
Well, what I can quote in response to this question is I have a colleague, Katalin Kolláth, who has been interviewing Hungarian and foreign managers for around 20 years. So this is a very, very long research. And one thing that has come out of these interviews is that, and this is again not only true of Hungary. So if you are a foreign company wanting to come and invest and set up business in Hungary or in a foreign country, you have to take into consideration the local circumstances, the local situation. So it's impossible, and you will not be able to manage well if you do not consider what the procedures, practices are in the given country. And of course, another thing that has come out of this research is that, and these are comments made by foreign managers about Hungarians. First is bureaucracy, there's a lot of bureaucracy. Hungarians are not always willing to take responsibility for their actions, okay, so finding the scapegoat elsewhere. Another thing that they have noticed is that Hungarians tend to use the telephone for private purposes, not just for business. Another point is that Hungarians are not very good at keeping deadlines. I see that with students too, of course. So but not just Hungarian students. So that's French are just as bad. And the other thing is that Hungarians live in each other's pockets, and again we're talking about companies here, which means that Hungarians are very familiar with each other's private lives. Okay, so there's a lot of gossiping going on within the company instead of focusing on work itself. Well, perhaps these are some of the things, and there can be many, and of course Hungarians have their own grievances regarding the international foreign managers, but perhaps briefly this is what I can say about this.
Thank you very much for this interview.
You're welcome.